Hi, welcome to this tutorial. Today, I'm going to show you how to use Kreezalid to easily create a service-based marketplace like Fiverr. First, let me quickly show you what the final result will look like. So here's how our service marketplace looks like. We have a search field where people can enter keywords to search for listings. We also have this hero section with a nice background image. And then we have some descriptive features. And of course, we have featured listings. So these are, a few examples of what can visitors expect to find on your marketplace. It's always good to have those. And so you can see the face of the freelancers because it's service marketplace. Anyway, let's see the listing details page. So on that page, you have the listing description, of course, and you also have the listing price and some options that users can choose from if they want. And of course, they can purchase the gig by pressing the button or send a message to the seller. You also have a login form for users' account and a sign-up form for users to create their account. We also have a specific landing page for sellers interested in joining the platform, and they'll have their very own sign-up form, which is different from the regular user sign-up form. So the first thing we want to do is to configure the order types. So the order types, basically they are the spine of how we process transactions and how our marketplace works. To configure the order types, go to Settings, and then to Order Types. And here you'll have all the parameters that you can modify to customize the way the transactions will behave on the marketplace. So here is the main configuration screen for your order types. And the first thing you want to do is to make sure that you select booking rental as the transaction type. Next, we want to show prices on each listing page, so make sure that enable price on listing is on yes. And then we won't bother with the next two configuration options as they mostly for product marketplaces, so we don't need them. So we can skip that and leave it to no. Next up, we have the text that will appear on the purchase button on listing pages. Just let me show you what I'm talking about quickly. So when you go on a listing, you will see a big green button here, and this is this text right here. So we want to customize this text to whatever we want, but we won't get too fancy, so we'll just put buy this gig. Next, you can customize the text that will appear on free listings if you ever have the case where a seller provides free service. So this is the text that will appear in place of the purchase button. And then, of course, you want to make sure you enable payments because you want to be able to process payments on your marketplace. And the last option of this panel is the price units, which is a way to say what's the time frame with which the freelancers will bill their time. So usually it's per hour, per day, per night, per week, or per month. So for our service marketplace, we'll simply pick the two first, so per hour and per day. And if you have a very specific price unit that's not here, you can of course add a custom one. Next up are the booking rental options. Since we're not a booking rental marketplace but a service marketplace, here the options don't apply, so we can leave all the options to no. Next, the product selling options don't apply, so we move on. Next is the sample preview section, and for our marketplace we want to allow our sellers to provide external links to maybe their previous work or some portfolio, so make sure to enable this parameter. And you can customize the label for this section, but we'll just leave it to live preview. Next, head over to the Images tab, and we'll make a few simple tweaks here. First, we want to use the supplier's avatar as listing cover. So when visitors will browse the listings, they'll see the seller's pictures. We set the next parameter to yes to enable our users to upload images, and then select the number of images they can upload. And we'll choose the maximum here, which is 3. And we set the last parameter to no, so users don't have to upload at least one image. Next, we'll quickly go over the quantity tab, just to make sure that everything is set to no, since we're not dealing with any products. Next, head over to the fees tab, and this is where we'll be able to specify the type and amount of fees that we want to have on each transaction. So you can choose between fixed fees or percentage fees. So either a fixed amount or a 10%, 15%, 20% on each transaction. And the parameter in the middle is simply when you're dealing with quantities, but we're not dealing with quantities here, so just leave it on this option, no, apply the fixed fee once per order, it doesn't matter. The next important configuration we have to take care of now is the user groups and attributes. On your marketplace, you will have two types of users. You will have the sellers, sometimes called the providers or the suppliers, and the customers, the buyers. So right now we're going to go and create two user groups, and then we'll take care of the attributes. So from the settings page, click on users. And here there are some basic parameters, but the first thing we want to do is create new groups. So to do that, we click on user groups. And here you will see the list of your groups, but we have none so far. So we add a new group by clicking on add user group. And we'll create our first group, which will be the seller group. So we'll give it the title of seller. And of course, we authorize them to post listings. The next field is to define the type of entity most of you users will be. If you're dealing mostly with individuals, then select individual. And if you're dealing with companies mostly, then select companies. It's required. This info is required by the payment processors like Stripe and MangoPay. But don't worry, you're not tied to a specific type of entity. If at a later stage you want to work with one or the other, you'll be able to. The next parameter is public group. What this parameter does is on the default signup form, it allows users to change groups themselves, which we won't be using. So we're just simply going to set this parameter to no, because we're going to have separate forms, one specific form for the sellers and another one for the customers. The next parameter is how you want to display the name of the users, this group, on the different listing pages. And you have many options here, but we'll just keep it simple and display only the first name. Next, specify the URL to which the users of this group will be redirected to right after sign up. So it can be any URL you want, but a good thing to do is to redirect the sellers, since it's the seller group, so redirect them to the new listing creation page. And the URL for this page is /listing/new. So every time a new user signs up, they will be redirected to the new listing creation form. And finally, of course, we want this group to be active. So we say yes and click save. All right, so we have our seller group here now. And the next thing is to add the customer group. So we're just going to do the same thing. So for the title, we'll use customer. And so the customer by default won't be allowed to post listings. So we say no. And usually the type of account is often individual, but sometimes it can be agencies, but it's up to you. But again, most of the time customers are individuals. Again, for the next parameter, we don't want the users to have to specify which group they want to sign up to, because we'll have separate forms, one for the customer, one for the seller. So we set it to no. For the next parameter, we use the same setting as with the sellers. And for the URL to redirect the users to, we're simply going to redirect every user that signs up to the main browsing page. So it's /listings. Again, you could use any URL you want, but this one is the most straightforward. And then finally, we want this group to be active. So we simply select yes, and we'll click save. You now have your two user groups, customer and seller. And at any time, you can come back to the form just by clicking on the name of the group. And the most important information here is at the top of the form, here is the direct link to the registration form. This is the URL you will use wherever you want to link the form for this group. So here is the seller registration form. So the most important part is this part at the end. And usually in the menu, for example, this is the path that you'll use. You don't have to use the full URL. So for instance, if I go to the customer form, I can select the URL and enter it in my address bar. And here it is. The form is ready for people to sign up, entering their info. And this is good for our customers. But what about our sellers? We would like to have a little more of information about our sellers when they sign up. So what we would like is to add more fields to the sign up form. And this is done via user attributes. User attributes are a way to collect more info about specific groups. So to add a user attribute, go back to the user settings and then click on user attributes. And here is the list of your user attributes. The list is empty, so let's add some right now. So for instance, a user attribute for a seller could be their level of experience, whether they are a beginner, intermediate, or an expert. So we're going to add that right now. You can formulate it as a question. So how many years of experience do you have? Next, choose the type of field for the sign-up form. So here we pick the number type. We want this field to be required. And we don't need to display this information on the user profile. Next is the visibility. And we're going to choose to display this field both on the sign-up form and on the profile edition form. And lastly, the sort priority parameter lets us configure the order of appearance of the fields in the sign-up form. So the lower the number, the higher this field would appear on the sign-up form. So right now we only have one user attribute, so we can leave it to that. Note that the sort priority only concerns the user attributes. You can place a user attribute field above the default fields. And then we select the user group seller and save. Now, let's add another user attribute for our seller group. This time, we would like the sellers to give us the info whether they agree to work on premises or if they do remote work only or both. So we're just going to put that. Next, let's choose the type of form input that will appear. So we can choose either drop-down or checkbox. And then we are able to list the different options that will appear on the sign-up form. So the first option will be remote job. And for the second option, it will be if they prefer to work on premises. And let's add a third one, which is a way for them to tell that they have no preference and they can do both. At any time, you can change the order of these options or add new ones or remove one. Next, let's make this field required, and we want it to display on the user's profile. And we keep the same settings as the first user attribute. Here, the sort priority, if we leave it to 0, it will simply go after the first user attribute we created. But of course, you can put any number. Anyway, then let's assign this user attribute to the seller group again and click Save. And here we have our two user attributes that are linked to the seller group. And now let's check out our seller signup form now that we've added these user attributes. So to see the URL, remember, we go to the seller edit form, copy the link here. Let's open it. And here's how our seller signup form looks like. As you can see, it has the same fields as the customer signup form, but it also has two additional fields that correspond to the user attributes that we just created. So the number of years of experience and the mission move preference. So what we want to do now is to create a page specifically for sellers that will act as a landing page for them, so they'll be able to sign up from this page. So let me quickly show you how this page will look like. It's a nice little landing page with a short explanation about what it means to become a seller on your platform and the benefits, and of course, a call to action that will redirect your future sellers to the sign up form. So let me show you how to create a page. To create a page, simply go to Pages, and here you have the list of all your marketplace pages. So by default, we create 2 pages, About Us and Contact Us. To create a new page, simply click on Add Page, and here we'll simply add the page name. So for instance, Become a Seller. And just note that this is the internal name, the one you'll see in the dashboard. It's not the page title, just for your own organization. You can specify the page title here, and this is the text that the end user, your visitors, will see. And then the rich text editor to edit the content of your page. And you can even add a featured image to make it even nicer. You can also switch the rich text editor to source code mode. And it's very useful if you know a little bit of HTML, because it allows you to really customize the layout just as you wish. Internally, we use the Bootstrap framework. So if you know how to use it, you can create complex layout with columns and rows and buttons. So for the example here, we'll actually use some custom source code using a simple 2 columns layout made with Bootstrap. So we'll simply copy and paste some code here. So it's a pretty simple layout with 2 columns. Click OK. Once you save the code, you can directly edit any element simply by clicking on it. Here we can change the URL of the call to action. So even if you used source code mode first, you can still use the rich text editor right after to continue editing your content. Below you'll find the search engine optimization options, and you can change the URL of this page if you want, and the meta title and description. Here it's really up to you, so we won't be filling those fields right now. And of course you want this page to be visible online. And finally, we'll add a nice featured image to the page. And now just click Save. And your page is created. If you want to see what your page looks like, well, you just have to copy the URL here in your address bar. So copy the domain and then the path. And here you go. Here's your page just created. What you're seeing right now is our home page. We haven't customized it yet. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But just before that, let's see how we can add a link to our menus. So here's the main menu of the website, and here's the footer menu. So for instance, let's add a link to the page we just created to the main menu right here. To do that, head over to your dashboard and go to Navigation. And here you have the 2 menus I just talked about, so click on Main Menu. Here you have the default menu items. So to add a new menu item, click on Add Menu Item on the left and enter the title of the menu item. And in the drop-down list, select the page that we just created. Click on Save Changes. And now if we go back and refresh, we can see our new menu item appear. So here we added the link to the main menu, but if you also want to add it to the footer menu, all you have to do is click on Footer Menu and simply repeat the process. The next thing we want to do is to create our listing categories and attributes. So to do that, in the Settings panel, go to Listings, and then click on the button Listing Categories. And we're going to add some digital service categories like marketing, development, or design. So to create a category, click on Add New Category. And here, enter the title. So we'll start with web development. And remember, it's just like the pages here. You have a name just for you and a title that will appear to the public. Next, we can enter a category description, and the text we'll enter here will appear at the top of the category page when users will browse by category. So here we'll enter something really simple. 3 hours later. Next, we'll add a nice featured image for the category page. And then let's quickly review these options here. So if you choose to display this category in the mega menu, as the name says, well, it will show in the mega menu if you enable that mega menu in the settings. And you can also choose whether you want this category to show up on search results page. And finally, you can use this category as a filter when visitors browse listings. And just like pages, since it's a category page, you have the option to customize the SEO parameter like the URL, the meta title, and meta description. Okay, let's save this category. And actually, web development is kind of a broad category, so what we want is to have it act as a parent category and create subcategories that are more specific. So let's do that right now. So for instance, we could add a specific language in web development, so PHP. Next, let's add a nice little description. And now we can select the category we created previously as a parent of this one. And let's save. So now that I showed you how to create a category, I'm going to go and create a bunch of other ones and see you when it's done. 8 hours later. Alright, now we have our main parent categories and their subcategories. It's time to add some listing attributes. Listing attributes are to listings the same as user attributes are to users. They are additional custom fields that can be used to add more information to your listings. So let's see how to add a listing attribute. Go back to the general settings for listings, click on listing attributes, and then click on add new attribute. So for instance here, we can add an attribute to indicate where the sellers are going to deliver their services. Are they going to perform on premises? Or is it remote work only? Or can they do both? So let's give it an explicit title. And for the type, we'll choose a drop-down list so the users can select from our options. You can provide a help message if you want to make things more clear. And so we can now add our options. So we're going to add remote work and on premises. And we're going to add another option for the case where they want to do both. So now that you have your options, the cool thing is that you can also use this listing attribute as a filter for when the visitors browse the listings. And if you select yes here, a new filter will appear on the left side column of the listing pages and will allow visitors to filter the listings and, for instance, find all the listings that are remote only. Next, we choose not to display the unselected option. And with services, it's usually important to know this info, so we'll make it required. We want it visible for everyone. And sort priority here is just like the user attributes, so it's the order in which the fields are going to appear in the form. So we can leave it to 0 here, and it's sorted automatically. And this listing attribute is rather relevant to all categories, so we'll simply select all the categories and click Save. Alright, let's quickly add another one. This attribute will be used to indicate the seller's experience level. For this field, we could use the short text type or even the number type, but I think it's a good thing to keep answers consistent, so we'll go for drop down. And we'll offer the beginner option from 0 to 2 years. An intermediate option from 2 to 7 years. And finally, we add the last option, which is expert. 7 years or more. We'll use this attribute as a filter. This time, we won't make this attribute required, and we'll simply assign it to all the categories too. Okay, now let's just add one final example of an attribute, and this one will be specific to a category. So for instance, let's add an attribute that would be specifically linked to the design category. So it would be, for instance, the specialty in the design domain. So for the type, we're gonna pick checkbox this time because we want to let users select one or more specialties. So for instance, one specialty could be Photoshop, another one could be Illustrator, and another one yet could be Adobe Premiere. We won't use this attribute as a filter, and we'll leave the other option to no. And we also won't make it required and make it visible to everyone. But this time, we'll assign this attribute only to the design categories. So when a user will create a listing, they will be able to indicate their specialty. And there we have it, our 3 listing attributes that will on one side allow sellers to provide more relevant info when they create a listing, and on the other side allow visitors to filter the listings using these attributes. And now here comes the cool stuff, adding useful features to enhance your marketplace in just a few clicks with apps. So simply go to the App Store, and there you'll find tens of apps that will make your marketplace a lot easier and more fun to use. For instance, you can give your users the ability to have a wish list so they can save their favorite listings. You can have a full-blown messaging system so your users can talk to each other, or you can add a Google map to the listings. So let's do that right away. We'll start off by installing the wishlist plugin so users can maintain a favorite list. To install this plugin, simply click on Install. Settings are pretty straightforward here. Enable the plugin, and then you can change the title that it used to identify the customer's wishlist link. So you could say, for instance, favorites, or maybe saved for later. And then you can change the text of the button that will be used to add a listing to the wish list. So we use the same thing as the field above. And you can change the button icon if you want it to be a heart icon, or star icon, a plus icon, or even no icon. So we'll keep it as a plus icon. You can change the button background color and the button text color. So we'll make it red with the white background. And if you want, you can customize the confirmation messages that are displayed to the user after an action. Hit save, and we're done. Now at the top of the App Store, you will see all your installed apps. Next, let's install the messaging system. It's called Inbox. Click on Install. And with this plugin, the settings are even more simple. All you have to do is enable the plugin, customize the title if you want, and customize the contact button that will appear on the listings. But we'll leave it like this. And now let's go back to the App Store. Alright, now that it's done, let's add another useful app, the add-on app. The add-on app comes in handy when you want to allow your sellers to offer extras on top of a basic listing. For instance, on our digital services marketplace, say a seller has a logo design offer. The basic listing price includes one single logo. Well, with this app, the seller could add an extra offer, like 2 other variants or unlimited revisions at an additional cost. So a buyer can come on the listing and decide to purchase only the basic version or add the extra options on top. So let's configure it and see how it looks like. So we enable it. And next, you have a few options to control how the add-ons will look like on the listing page. For the first setting, we'll select the sidebar position. We want it to look like this. You can see an example of add-on in the sidebar here. And the rest of the settings here are for the listing creation form. So you can customize the section's title in the form. You can also add a little description to help your users. Next, you can customize the different labels that will appear in the form. And for the last setting, since we're dealing with digital services and not products, we'll simply choose no quantity. Click Save. And we're done configuring this add-on. Now let's go and install the next add-on. The next add-on we're going to install is Google Maps. So when a seller creates a listing, they will be able to provide their location information. So let's go over and click Install. So enable it, and then provide your Google Maps API key. You will find your Google Maps API key on the Google Developer Support website. And the next settings are for how the map is going to display by default. So the default latitude and the default longitude. And you can also specify the default zoom level. The next settings allow you to configure what will be suggested when the seller starts typing their location in the form field. So you can choose the suggestions to be cities, regions, full addresses, or geocodes. And finally, the last setting allows you to choose specific countries from which the suggestions will be retrieved. So for instance, if your users are only in the United States, just pick United States. You can select one or several countries. And if your marketplace is global, simply leave the field blank. Let's save our changes, and we're done. The next app we'll install is the More Pictures app. And you guessed it, this app will allow sellers to upload more pictures when they create a listing. So let's go over and install it. And all you have to do here is to enable the app. Once it's enabled, the users will automatically have the ability to upload more pictures. Now let's go ahead and click Save Changes. And now go back to the App Store. The next thing we want to do is to enable our visitors to share the listings on our marketplace. So the best way to do that is to install the Social Share app. So the configuration is pretty straightforward. You just have to enable the app, and then you can customize the sharing section title. So we'll use Share This Gig. And you can select different sharing icon sizes, small, normal, or big. And finally, simply select which social networks you want to have share buttons for. Here by default we have Facebook, Twitter, and email share buttons. Let's add Google+. Nah, I'm just kidding. No one uses it anymore. But we could add LinkedIn. And maybe Reddit too. Alright, now let's click Save. And we're good with the Social Share app. The last app we want to install is the Listing Tags app. There's literally no configuration. And once you just enable the Listing Tags app, when creating a new listing, users will be able to specify tags. And with the help of these tags, just like Twitter or Facebook tags, the visitors will be able to find listings more easily. Now it's time to customize your theme and your homepage. So let's do that right away by clicking on Theme. And your marketplace comes with the KeenShare theme that you'll be able to customize just like you want. Let's see how it looks by default. So when you haven't customized anything, your marketplace looks like this. But of course, we're going to change that. So go back to the admin dashboard, click on Customize, and here we'll select General. We're going to upload a header image. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about the header image. It's right here. Instead of a simple text, we can have a nice logo image. So let's upload it right now. And we're also going to customize the favicon to make it even more personalized. Okay, click Save. And now you can see your uploaded images. And let's have a quick look. Refresh. And here you go. You have your favicon and header logo. Great. The next part is customizing theme colors. And I'm not going to go over each and every color customization possibility here because there are way too many. Just know that you can pretty much customize anything on your marketplace. You can customize the color of the body text, the links, the buttons, the labels, and you can customize the color, the background color, and the border color. You're really free to do whatever you want, and for each section you can customize the colors. So for the pages and every type of content inside them, you can customize everything in the blog section. or the footer. So we really have a lot of control for every section, even the header, the homepage, listing, etc. Also remember, each time you make a modification, don't forget to hit the save button. The next section allows us to edit our footer, and we can select the number of columns we want to have in the footer. So right here, we'll go for 3 columns. And right away, we're presented with 3 rich text editors. And inside those editors, you can basically put whatever content you want. So it can be links, text, images. But most of the time, you'll want to stick with links. I'll just go ahead and fill this quickly. Alright, now that our footer columns are filled, let's get to social media links. So all you have to do is to enable it and insert your usernames for each social media. So here we'll use Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And let's not forget to save our changes. And if we go back to our home page, let's see how it looks now. We have our 3 columns footer and the social media links. Perfect. Here's our home page, and it's not very personal, isn't it? So let's go and customize it. So first head over to your dashboard and go to Theme and Customize, and this time click on Homepage. Your homepage is divided into 6 different blocks, and the first of them is the welcome block, which you see right here. Alright, let's customize our welcome block. And just a side note, the blocks are all toggled on by default, but if you don't want to show a block on the homepage, you can simply turn it off by toggling it off here. So we're going to upload a nice background image for our welcome block. And we can choose the background alignment. So we'll keep it to middle. You can even have a background video if you want. You just have to put the link here and it'll show on your homepage. Next, you can change the title, of course. Here you want to put your headline. And change the text under the headline. Usually, it'll be your value proposition. Next, you can control the height of the section of the whole welcome block, and we'll choose large here. And here you set the text of your call to action. So if you leave the field empty, you won't have any button, but it's a good practice to have a call to action on your homepage. So we'll fill this field. And our call to action will simply link to the listing browsing page. The last setting of the welcome block allows you to control what kind of search you want to let your users perform. So you can let them perform a search by keyword, location, or category. So if we leave the field empty, we don't have any searched field. We'll just have the text and the call to action. But of course, it's more useful for users to be able to search by keywords. So let's just do that. And now you see the search bar and people will be able to enter keywords and search gigs on your marketplace. Next is the featured categories block, and it allows you to show 3 categories right under the welcome block. So you can customize the title, and you can customize each column separately. And note that although it's called featured categories, it doesn't have to be categories. You can actually link to anything you want, to any page, and change the image. But we won't be using this block on our home page. So let's disable it and click Save. The next block is the custom section, and just as the name implies, it's a part of the page that you'll be able to fully customize. It's this part that you see right here. So you have a lot of flexibility here. And to obtain this result, you can either use the rich text editor that's provided here, or you can provide your own HTML source code. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to paste a little snippet of code that I prepared. And when I click OK, you can see that the HTML is instantly displayed in the rich text editor. And what's nice is that you can actually edit the text right here in the editor without having to go back to the source code. So I'm saving it. And let's go back to the page and refresh. And here's our custom section. Note that the underlying styling is done with the framework Bootstrap, so if you know how to use it, you can leverage the layout utilities of Bootstrap. And you can see that we have a little problem of CSS here, but we'll take care of that in just a few minutes. I'll just finish with the blocks first, and then we'll take care of the CSS. So the next section is the featured listings. And as the name says, it's a simple way to display featured listings on your homepage. So you can select the number of listings you want to show, and you can customize the title. So for instance, let's change this to featured gigs and save. And right away, if we refresh the page, we can see the title and the number of listings have changed. Of course, these are placeholder listings since none has been created yet. Now let's change the number of listings to 8 for good measure. And the next section is the homepage editorial section, and it allows you to add some extra content to your homepage, like a featured article or a special offer or any content that you want promoted on the homepage. But in our case, we won't be using this section, so we simply disable it and save. And the last block is the featured blog post block. It will allow you to display the latest blog articles that you wrote. You can select the number of posts you want to display on the homepage, but we won't be using it either. There's one little last thing that we need to do, and it's to take care about this little messy CSS problem here. So we have our blocks, and we need to customize the CSS. So to do so, what we have to do is to go into our HTML and to identify the classes that need styling. So in our example, it's the city class that we can see for each of our blocks. And the ID of the section is cities. So now all we have to do is to go into customize and customize CSS. And here's a little snippet of code that I prepared in advance. So we paste the CSS code, save. And if we go back and refresh, here we have our nice little layout. And this is how our marketplace looks like at the end. Here you can see some example listings. And if you go to the listing page, you will see the list of all listings. So we just created a few of them. And you can click on any of them to open its details. You can see the ratings and the title. And you can filter the list on the left side. And you can filter by price. Or you can filter the results by using the listing attributes that you previously created. And there you have it, a fully functioning service marketplace in under 45 minutes. How cool is that?